So what is our responsibility? Should the UK take in more migrants? Well, rejoined now by poet and broadcaster Len Sissay and by journalist and columnist Angela Epstein. Yasmin, let me begin with you. Have we done enough to help the migrants in Calais?
No, we haven't. And when Cameron was in power, he said we would take 4,000. That was about 18 months ago. And we haven't taken any of those. But the children are the biggest worry. And some of them actually have relatives here. Some of them have homes to come to. And many Syrians, I know, particularly Syrian families, have offered to foster these children. So I don't understand how we can sign up to a treaty, which we're signed up to, on, let's not talk about migrants, we're talking about refugees. People from Syria, most of them, well, we know they're refugees by the basic definition of what refugees are.
Peter.
We need to get them over.
Peter, have we done enough?
Well, they're not refugees by the basic definition of what refugees are, because they long ago reached a safe country in the shape of Turkey. What they became when they left Turkey and tried, quite reasonably, I don't in any way denigrate their ambitions to move to a more prosperous part of the world, but what they became when they left Turkey was migrants, and they seek to come here. Now, there are legal ways of coming to this country, and it involves applying for entry under legal forms, and you can do that, or you can go and set up an illegal camp in France and put moral pressure on states to let you in, and let you in and let you jump the queue. This is unfair on the people who have gone through the process properly.
What about
legally.
the children?
It's not
Peter?
Taken.
Sorry, Yasmin. Let me just. Sorry, Yasmin. Let me just ask this.
No, I'm sorry. I do have to contradict you.
What about the children who are fleeing from Syria, who are fleeing from violence and persecution in their country, and they're in this camp in the so-called jungle?
Why are they there? Why are they?
Because they fled.
Why are they in this place, which is known to be dangerous and squalid and violent?
So it's their fault.
How did they get
there?
It's their fault. How did they get there?
I think the thing is that look, anybody with a shred of humanity would weep bitterly at the sight of any child in particular, the most vulnerable in society, being in this desperate situation. And of course our knee-jerk moral response is that we have to help. But we have to have a managed response. Now, for example, there's a lot of talk about the comparisons with the Kindertransport, when the British government offered refuge to Jewish children fleeing during the Second World War. But even then, some kind of surety had to be offered either by private individuals or organisations to act as a guarantor for the children that came here. Now, these children were fleeing from desperate circumstances. Nobody is suggesting that children should be left to fend for themselves. And I agree with Peter. Turkey, or from where they come from Syria and beyond, is a very long way from Calais. And certainly from a kind of cultural position, if somebody is to be in that terrible position of to become a refugee, which is different from being an economic migrant, obviously, a different kind of argument, surely there needs to be some placement in a country that is somehow culturally more similar, so that even if that is for a short space of time, the reabsorption will be better afterwards.
Are we saying now that people who flee or want to go to another country, we have to determine which countries they go to and what country
talking about what's
relevant to them?
Because what might be better.
People have been migrating
Jews
since
were aliens.
People have always migrated. I migrated the moment I came out of my mother's womb, from there into the open air. Migration is at the heart of who we are as natural human beings, and my patriotism, my love of being British, I was born here in the villages of Lancashire, is exemplified by how open I am to people coming to this country.
That's a different conversation, though.
I'm strengthened by people coming to this country, not weakened.
Countries do not have a limitless capacity.
Well, what is the limit?
To absorb
Peter,
migrants.
what is that limit?
I would say the limit, if you ask the question, I'll answer it. I would say the limit is defined by what we can take in the form of housing, of employment, in public services, in health services, in schools, and also, and this is very important, in our ability to absorb. When people come from other cultures, they will absorb and integrate if they're given the chance to do so. But if there is a constant flow, if there is a constant flow of migration, then it is much harder for existing migrants to integrate and for the country to integrate them. And indeed, many of the people who are most concerned about the level of migration this country is currently undergoing are people who've migrated here in the past and see their own position
Can we talk about
made
refugees?
worse by it.
We're talking about refugees. We're talking about refugee
No,
children.
we're not talking.
No,
we've established we're not talking about
say,
refugees.
Can
we're
I
talking about migrants.
We're talking about refugees.
Actually, we are. we are
Address my
talking about
point.
We're talking about
refugees.
Address my
refugees.
point.
Can I talk?
Why are they
Peter,
refugees?
I need to talk.
Why are they
I need
refugees?
to
Don't
talk.
shout.
And so do I.
Don't
I
shout.
do.
So do
No,
I.
you've
Let's
had
have
your say.
equality about this. Why are they refugees?
Yasmin is
Okay.
responding.
I
to
am
the
responding.
Issue of refugees.
You're just repeating something which isn't true.
More people, and actually when Jewish people came, let me remind you, all the papers said there were aliens. The word alien came into use when the Jewish people were coming
Let's
over.
talk about
okay,
the point.
so the
What's the
refugees.
point
So
you're
when your
making?
cultural point, but
No,
those
I
are
don't- you're-
refugees.
you're
those
not making
refugee
any sense
children,
by saying that.
We have
You're not
not,
making any
as Alf
sense.
Dubs has said consistently and persistently, we have not taken the refugees that we absolutely, as a European-wide, whether we're in the EU or not, absolutely have a responsibility to take.
And the government
especially
has-
to
the
take
government
children.
has vowed
and
to
they have
take
said yes,
20,000
and they
from
have
Syria
not taken them.
by
And
2020.
that's the point. They have not taken them.
But that's
we are
the
breaking
point.
our word.
You know, Yasmin uses the word responsibility, and I think it is key to the whole discussion. You're absolutely right. We're talking about refugees. We're using words like crisis and responsibility. We're not talking about economic migrants, as Peter said, looking for prosperity in other countries. We talk about a moral responsibility, but with responsibility comes the ability to be able to provide accordingly. And if you don't have a managed response, as I said, or the protocol in place, then it's all very well saying that Cameron, and you're absolutely right, he did promise, and that promise hasn't been honoured. But there has to be the structure in place before we go about...
Whose fault is the managed response? Like, if we have refugees coming here and there isn't a managed response, why are we blaming the refugees? And why are we not calling out... Absolutely.
Why are we
So
blaming the
calling our
refugees?
government to account, calling the education system to account, calling the children's services to account. Those are the people who we should be... Those are the places where we should be asking to provide
people we
for
should
those
be
people.
blaming are, amongst other things, our own government, which is created by several unnecessary and
so
stupid
now we get to
wars.
it.
The conditions under which people are fleeing from Afghanistan, from Syria and Iraq, and also through Libya, where we destroyed the existing government. That there is a very heavy responsibility on our government and on those who supported the
Okay,
wars for that. But that's but they are not refugees once they have reached a safe country.
Let's find out what our viewers are saying. We're talking about whether or not we're doing enough to help the migrants in Calais. You've been having reactions coming in as well. Tommy, I understand from all the other subjects we've been talking about this morning.
You said it was going to be a meaty one. It has been, really has been. There's been lots of sympathy for immigrants as well, but lots of people saying what kind of stretch is it going to be putting on the resources here in the UK. So should we take in more migrants? No, says Nicola. Our social services are under huge stress already. We have kids in the UK that go hungry and live in poverty, so we need to help them. Billy says, yes, we have taken hardly in any migrants. Our country is partly responsible for the Iraq war, and this is one of the consequences. Elizabeth saying, of course we should take them in. They are children in need of stability. The question that needs to be asked is, what sort of people turn away children in desperate need? And Julie says, no, we shouldn't take in any more migrants. Our country has plenty of people who are born and bred here that need our help. Charity should begin at home. And finally, Robert says, can we all please put our stupid ignorance aside and just help these kids already? I'm sure something that Jasmine will agree with.
Absolutely, Yasmin. I want to pick up with you because France is a safe country.
Yes,
The children in Calais, they'd be safe there.
But they have families here. The 350 of them, as Alf Dubs said, have family connections to this country. And how can we have a refugee policy? And I agree with you that, you know, when families are able to vouch for those children and look after them, what is holding this back? We have not done our duty by them.
Angela.
Well, the other thing I was going to say, I don't know that this is a kind of a curveball here, we have an overburdened foreign aid budget. Why don't we spend it on helping? I mean, this is a foreign situation, if you like, in the broader sense. I mean, there has to be money in the pot to do this. We're spending money we're sending money to India, which has a space program. I know that's often used as an example of that. But we have to have some kind of protocol. And if the husbandry is there and it can be done properly, then...
But Angela, we do, and it's one of the very few things I praise this government over, is that it does actually spend a large amount of money on helping refugees from the Syrian war near to where their homes are, in the hope that they can come home, which is a much more sensible thing than what we're currently doing, which is encouraging people smugglers and falling for their public relations. If the entire jungle emptied tonight and everybody in it came to Britain, within 3 weeks it would be there again in the same place.
Okay, let me...
People smugglers carry on sending
Peter,
people there.
we have
all the
30
time.
I pride myself
seconds.
on being...
We have 30 seconds. I'd like final thought from you.
I pride myself on being British, and I pride myself on our openness and the fact that we have constantly had immigration in this country. It's part of what keeps us alive and healthy.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. Lemmy, Peter, Angela, Yasmin, and to all of you today.